Wander Wealthy Podcast, episode 104. Hello, my loves. Welcome back to another episode of the Wander Wealthy Podcast. My name is Tess Wicks. I'm the host if you're new, and today we're doing a solo show talking all about money and travel. So I took this question to the social networks, asking you guys what big questions you have about money and travel, and I got a lot of great questions in response. So I'm going to be answering those today. We're going to talk about taxes, and as a big disclaimer for this episode, I am not a tax expert. If you are thinking about going nomadic, becoming a digital nomad, taking your own business, or working for a company but traveling while you work because you can do it virtually, you need to speak with a tax professional. Not only because it's going to be wise for you to understand what tax implications you have while traveling, but also because there's some interesting laws in the tax code that could save you a shit ton of money in terms of income taxes. So it's in your best interest. I will tell you a little bit about how you can, find those or do some research, but know that whatever I have to share, it is not tax advice and you need to go do your own research, okay? So we're going to talk about that for those who are aspiring digital nomads, because I get it. There's a lot holding us back from tearing off the Band-Aid and booking that flight and making that decision, but it is such a good decision. It's one of the best I've ever made. And lots of unanswerable questions there, but also I got a lot of questions just about travel and how to save money in general. We're going to talk about long distance relationships and saving and spending in those and how to be smart with your money while also being in love. We're going to talk about my best tips for booking travel, whether you should take a tour or just explore on your own, and so much more. A lot of this is going to come from my personal experience, so just keep that in mind. Now, before we get into the meat of the episode, I want to share that this episode is pretty much brought to you by the Wander Wealthy programs. If you don't know, Wander Wealthy is a platform for millennial women to get their money right. We are going through a slight pivot, but that will be really rolling out come May. And I just want you to know, as my content starts to pivot to focus much more on people who own online businesses and still need help managing their personal but also their business finance, there's still a ton of content on this podcast as well as on my website, wanderwealthy.com, and programs that will help you if you are a W-2 9-to-5er who makes an income by getting paid from a different company and you need help managing your finances. I still support you. I still want to help everyone, every person who needs help in the world of personal finance. There is going to be a pivot in terms of content from me, but I still want to help you out. And the Wander Wealthy programs are perfect for you. We have the Invested program, which is very specific, deep dive into investing. If you feel like, dang, I need to get my adult pants on and start investing for my future, but I don't understand a single thing about investing, then this program is for you. Even if you understand quite a bit, but you want a process and an approach and a strategy that you can feel confident in, then you want to check out Passive Index Investing, and I teach you how to do that, how to implement it to your personal life, how to create your own personalized strategy in the Invested program. If you're looking for more of a comprehensive approach to getting your money managed, getting your finances in line, then you might be looking towards the Money program, which tackles budgeting, cash flow, debt repayment, saving for short-term, medium-term, and long-term goals. We dabble in investing, but it's much more of a broad approach to just getting your finances right. The Money program is for you if you're looking more for a lot of answers to various questions. Now, the reason why it's so important for you to get in now or just not wait is you could be saving at a minimum $100 by getting into the programs before May 1st, because on May 1st, the prices are going to be increasing, and like I kind of alluded to, they're going to be increasing by at least $100 each program. So if you want to grab this deal, grab it while it's hot, grab it while it's cheaper, get in by going to wanderwealthy.com, head to how to work with me in the navigation bar, and you will see both of those programs. You can check them out, put them in your cart, get inside. I want to support you. You're going to be surrounded by a community of people who are cheering you on, as well as me. I will answer any questions you have if you post them in our special program Facebook group. What else do I need to tell you? The prices are going up May 1st. Oh, the deal that I offer 2 podcast episodes ago, so back to podcast number 102 with Erin Lowry, where we talk specifically about investing, that deal for the invested program is still good. So if you want to get a hold of that deal and get a little bit of discount on top of saving at least $100 on the invested program before May 1st, then you got to get in because that deal will expire by May 1st. I want to see you in there. I want to help you start building your wealth and getting rich, my lady. Okay, let's go into today's topic, money and travel. So I have a loaded list of questions, and I think what I'm going to start with is I'm going to start with the general questions. We're going to talk about, I think I might have said that I was going to start with the more digital nomad questions, but I'm going to get general. We're going to go general, and then we're going to get specific here because that just feels natural. Let's see. The first question, like I said, I have a list. I'm looking through it. Okay. What airline have you used that you actually think has total steals? All right, my friends. If you've been listening to the podcast, if you've been around me for a while, you know that I am a huge fan of travel hacking, which is using credit cards, airline connected credit cards. So that might be like United Airlines Visa credit card, or which would go through Chase, or it might be just the Visa Chase Sapphire Preferred credit card, which gives you points that you can use on various different airlines, or it might be the American Airlines Citi. I don't know if that's a MasterCard or what, but you get the picture. There are like these airlines partner with Chase or Citi or Barclays or American Express, and then they create a credit card that you can then use to get points to then book tickets. This is how I've saved so much money on being able to travel because typically I'm traveling internationally. But by the way, if you are traveling domestically within the US, the Southwest Airlines Chase credit cards are amazing. They might have another card company as well, but just Southwest Airlines credit cards are amazing because if you get those points, you can use them to book tons of tickets. Like the points go so far on Southwest. Plus Southwest, I just love their airline for domestic travel. But anyway, if you are traveling internationally, this is going to be the biggest cost savings because international flights will, they'll be at least probably $500 to $600 and upwards of $2,000. I usually don't go above $1,200, but sometimes I do. But typically I try to find flights for free or for very little money by using travel hacking. So what you do is you sign up for these credit cards. You have to make sure that you can meet the minimum spending requirement, which means like, okay, you got to spend $3,000 in 3 months. So if you can do that reasonably without just buying a bunch of crap for the sake of getting the points, which is not worth it, or, without buying things that you need but not being able to pay it off, then you got yourself a steal. You got to be good at credit card management. You got to be good at having a good relationship with credit cards. But if you can do it, if you can spend $1,000 per month so that you're totaling $3,000 in 3 months, and you can pay that off without carrying a balance because otherwise it's not going to be worth it, then you might get 50 or 60,000 airline points or whatever they call them, reward points or flight points or miles, and then you can use those points to book travel. And usually a round trip ticket from the US to Europe and I think Asia and probably South America is going to be 60,000 points on most major airlines. Now, I typically go for United or American Airlines when I am booking this type of travel because I know what I'm going to get when I book through them. In terms of other airlines that are great steals, like I mentioned, if you're traveling domestically, Southwest, I hate Spirit and Frontier because it makes you just feel like a savage riding in the airline and you have to then pay for literally everything else. And to me, that does not feel fair or good. I feel like that's how they trick you to fly their plane, but then you have to pay if you want to bring anything with you, which if you're traveling, you probably do. And if you just book the Southwest flight, you're probably going to be fine, or a United or American. If you're traveling abroad, there's a ton of low-cost airlines, but you just have to remember that these low-cost airlines are going to do the same as what Spirit and Frontier do. In the States, they're going to nickel and dime you. So you might book a really cheap seat, but then you have to pay for baggage, you have to pay to select your seat, you probably have to pay for snacks, and like, girlfriend, you get parched when you're flying. You're like at a totally different air pressure level, life is weird. You're flying in a magic bullet through the sky to a different place. You get hungry, you get thirsty, so you're probably going to pay for snacks, and then you just end up spending more money. Just always make sure you're checking. In terms of booking flights, I love using Google Flights. I think Google Flights is just a really great portal, dashboard, aggregator, if you will, to help you book low-cost travel. The best way to get cheap, affordable travel is to be flexible. And that can be hard if you have a 9-to-5 because you have to ask for specific days off, and you probably have to fly on a Friday or a Saturday, or you want to fly on the Thursday. And actually, I find that flying on Thursdays/Fridays are more expensive than if you could fly on Saturday, which always sucks if you're trying to maximize the days because you don't want to land on Saturday. You want to be able to be there for the full Saturday. But if you do fly on Saturday, that can often save you money, as well as flying on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Thursdays and Fridays are business travel, so the airlines know they can charge more for those days because a lot of business travelers are traveling and they get to charge that back to the company, as well as flying on Sundays and Mondays. Those are also big business travel days. So that's why those days, if you're going to fly, is probably a little bit more expensive. So the more flexible you can be in terms of when to book is huge, as well as traveling in the off season. So every place has seasonality. If you're going to Europe in the summer, it's going to be more expensive than if you come to Europe in the winter. If you go to the Bahamas in the summer, it's going to be way cheaper than going to the Bahamas in the winter. You get it. Whenever other people want to go there, that's when you want to avoid going there. Not only is that going to bring you a better experience from a tourist perspective, but it is going to be cheaper. At the same time, you're not going to get as good of weather, but if you can, get around the weather aspect, you can still have a really great time wherever you're going. That's my advice in terms of finding steals. There are some great online websites and blogs. I think it's Scott's Cheap Flights, as well as The Points Guy and Million Mile Secrets. Those often have good deals. Even if it's not points related, they'll tell you what the deals are for travel. But I typically go more for the points and the rewards and travel hacking because that allows me to travel when I want with a little bit of flexibility, but also being able to do it and go wherever for cheap. Again, flexibility is not only timing and the days you get off, but also where you're willing to go. And that can save you a lot of money as well. But not everyone has those options. So leverage your other opportunities like using Google Flights. By the way, Southwest is not on Google Flights. So also make sure you look on southwest.com if you're looking to travel domestically. But using Google Flights, knowing that traveling on certain days is better, knowing that booking travel at least 45 days in advance if you're traveling domestically, and I would say at least 2 months in advance if you're traveling internationally, is always going to give you better results in terms of how expensive it's going to get. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Food. When we travel, we spend so much money on food. What do you do to save money while traveling? This is such a good question. I find that most places, there's actually affordable food options. Now, granted, you're going to be traveling, and so if you don't book a place like a Airbnb or some sort of homestay where you can cook your own food, you're going to be spending money on feeding yourself. And if you have kids, then your kids as well. In this case, it is going to be more expensive. And I will also say, if you're traveling, know that the food is really part of the experience. Now, if you're not big foodies, then go to a grocery store, pick up a bunch of snacks that you can just stash away and eat for breakfast and lunch, and then only spend money on dinner. But don't go all out and have to do a sit down fancy dinner. You could eat from food trucks. You could go to really local places. The locals aren't spending a ton of money on tourist attraction dining experiences. I experienced this a lot in Italy, where around the tourist attractions are the really way overpriced, super expensive food places. So if you're just willing to be patient and kind of get into the alleyways or go a little off the beaten path of the typical tourist attractions and get away and then find kind of hole in the wall restaurants, you're going to find much cheaper food, and it's probably going to be way, way better than what you would see at a tourist attraction location. So know that there is affordable food when you are traveling. You just have to seek it out and even ask the locals for their recommendations. Say, hey, what's a more affordable place to eat? Where do you like to go eat? What's the best food that's like totally off the beaten path or hole in the wall or, best kept secret, only the locals really go? That's what I want to experience, and then go find that. But also know if there is a food experience that you want to try, or you're going to like a really foodie place like Italy, it's also going to be so worth it to just incorporate that into your travel budget, knowing that you're going to be spending money on food, because that's part of the experience and it is wonderful and worth it. Okay, how do you not need a vacation after your vacation? We usually plan so much, we are wiped out when we get home. I'm going to group this question with the question about when do you use a tour versus exploring yourself? So I typically never take tours, and I try really hard not to overcommit every single day. Like, if I know there's things that I want to see, then I make sure to add those to my must-see list. But I also approach travel, and this comes kind of from a privileged place as someone who first financially travel, it has been affordable for me in certain ways, as well as travel is very easy for me to commit and then fulfill for myself. Like, I don't make it up to be this big thing, which is kind of a mindset thing. I talk to a lot of my traveler friends, how a lot of people we grow up with, because a lot of us are from the Midwest where not a lot of people get out of the country or even get out of the state very much, but traveling can be very affordable. It doesn't have to be expensive, but there's also a lot of like personal limiting beliefs that we put up around travel. We make it much harder than it actually is, when in fact, if you start traveling, you'll start realizing that there's ways that you don't have to just like be luxury travel. You don't have to make it a big deal. And that's when you can start adopting that mindset of, I'm probably going to be back someday, so I don't need to knock everything out in one shot. Now, I know that's not everyone's perspective. So if you do feel like you need to see every single thing, then you just got to be like, I'm probably going to be exhausted. In that case, you can try to figure out ways to expand the trip so that you are only going to see 1 to 2 things per day. But like, let's say you're traveling to Rome, you're going to probably go to the Colosseum and the Roman Forum in 1 day. You could expand it to 2, but still going to the Roman Forum in 1 day and just having that be your event is still going to be exhausting. So when I travel, I really try to only pick like 3 to 4 things that I really want to see. 4 is even aggressive. Really boil it down to 3 and just have it be like those must-see things, and everything else is a bonus. And then I make sure that there's time and space for me to relax as well. In some cases, like I host friends a lot, or I've hosted my parents in Rome, and it's just, okay, we just got to do this and knock this out. But when I personally plan my own itineraries, I really try to make it very relaxed. Now, in terms of the tours, like I said, I typically don't take tours, but there are some places where I wish I would have. For me, it's places that are super historical, and I know that I'm not going to go out and seek that information. And if I had someone guiding me, that would be amazing. Places like Rome would be really good options because it's such a deeply strong historical place, as well as places like I did a tour. It was like a full kind of class because I did it in college. But when I went to Egypt, it was so worth having a guide. Also for safety aspects and just the language barrier. I think that's also really important if you're going to a place like Egypt, just to have that extra buffer with you. But in terms of getting the knowledge, because it's so historical, it was so great to have that, because then I didn't have to constantly be like reading every single plaque or trying to figure out what is the most important information to gather and what is not. You also want to make sure that it's going to be affordable. And, again, if you're not looking to be exhausted at the end of the trip, doing a tour may exhaust you because they're less likely to loop in those breaks and those off days and those days for relaxation. So just remember that. I think the approach I take is really just like knowing, okay, I know I want to see this, this, and this, and then everything else is just kind of enjoy, wander around, take it day by day, and really make sure that I have time also to decompress and unplug. And it's also just remembering, like, you could do a bunch of stuff, but you're going to get just as much enjoyment out of kind of laying at the beach and going for walks and doing self-guided tours than filling your plate with a bunch of costly events and activities. So that's probably my best tip for you. That's also kind of my answer for how do you plan your travel and do research is really I kind of base it off of where do I want to go next and kind of make a list of just a couple of places or a handful of places that I'd be willing to go. And then I determine and look at the prices and go, okay, what's the more affordable option here? And yeah, a lot of my research and my travel planning happens around cost. I'll also look at, what are the things that I want to see? I use Pinterest for kind of the top things you need to see in Amsterdam or whatever you're looking for. And that helps me determine like, okay, I know that these are the important things. And then maybe I'll look up like 24-hour or 72-hour itineraries, and then they can give you an itinerary for where to go and what to do. You can also look at cheap things to do or self-guided walking tour or, those kind of lists that'll help you put together your own itinerary. And then you can, again, make sure you have that space so you have time to enjoy yourself as well. All right. What else do we have here? The last thing I'm going to touch on when it comes to personal travel is tips on spending while dating long distance. So this isn't necessarily personal travel. It's more about your personal relationship if you are in a long distance relationship. So this person asked, sounds like you did distance for a year before moving to Italy. I'm in a similar position now, and I'm trying to find a balance while still saving. So this definitely depends on what your long distance is, but if you do have to fly to travel to see that person, I think rewards programs are going to be great if you are in a situation where you can manage credit card spending appropriately. I would make a spreadsheet, figure out what it's going to take to get to the minimum spending requirements, and then see what sort of rewards you can get. For me, that was key. What was also really important was that I was communicating with my now fiance. We communicated very transparently about the costs involved. And this is going to sound really crazy, but we knew that our situation was really unrealistic in terms of having a thriving relationship, quote unquote, because we met when we were already long distance. So we had to figure out how to make it work while being apart. And then we also simultaneously had to figure out how to make it work when we were in those short periods together and seeing if it was going to work. So we actually had a motto that we said and called #failfast. I don't know why I hashtagged it. We didn't hashtag it, but whatever. And that was our motto for our relationship because we knew how kind of unrealistic it was. It was not only unrealistic from how are we going to know if this is going to work? And we don't want to spend years trying to figure it out. We were both kind of we don't want to waste each other's time, which sounds like a little harsh, but that's just our perspective on it. But we also knew financially it was not very realistic and sustainable either. And so we were okay, we're going to fail fast. We're going to go on this hard. We're going to both commit that this is a joint effort, and we're going to figure out what it's going to take. So in that case, when we were traveling, we looked at splitting the costs of the flights. If I couldn't do it with points, then, I would open it up and he would help out with paying for the flights, especially because they were much larger costs. But we also came from a fairly privileged position, just in the sense that I had flexibility in my work, so I could make it worth it, in quotes, in terms of if I was going to fly over to Italy, I would be able to stay here for 2 weeks, if not more. There was one period where I stayed here for 2 months. He also works for a company that is based in the US, and he would have to come to the US for various work meetings, which meant that he could do a stopover or I could fly to him in the US, which was way cheaper than flying all the way to Italy and more efficient in terms of timing. So we could also see each other that way. That was really helpful for us. We basically just leveraged the opportunities that we were given and that we had to be able to leverage. So that's also something, is just get creative and see what you're able to do. And then the last thing was, and I don't know if, people would say, oh, that's great, or that sounds like you're a crazy person, but we leveraged time and kind of putting time constraint on our relationship in a sense. Now, this goes against all the thing of oh, everything should flow naturally and it'll just happen naturally. But I was basically dude, I cannot just keep traveling back and forth. It is exhausting. I think this is worth it, but I do think we need to kind of figure out and make a commitment to if this is going to be worth it, if we're going to make this work, if we want to continue our motto of failing fast, then we need to make some big steps in terms of like, I'm going to have to move there and see if I like it and see if we can make that work. And so I did that, and I've done that for the year. And of course, this comes with a bunch of other stuff of like, okay, we need to figure out the work situation and all of that. And that's a little tricky to do. But I think what we did was really leverage all of those little opportunities that we had. There was one day where we saw each other for one day. I was traveling to Europe just to do kind of a workcation, and it sucked because it didn't overlap with him being around. He was actually on his own vacation. He goes on motorcycle trips every year, and he was going on his trip. He was going to be constantly moving. And so I made it work so that we would be in the same town for one day, and then we would go our separate ways. And so that was like a pre-planned vacation or workcation for me that I had, that then we were able to kind of take advantage of to see each other. But then again, he went his separate ways, I went mine, and then I met up with a girlfriend for an actual vacation that we already had planned. So these are all things that, again, we just kind of figured out how to make it work with the resources and the opportunities we had given to us. One thing that I have my clients do as well is make a savings account specifically for travel and set money aside there for whether you're traveling every single month, or maybe you're switching and doing every other month. Maybe he comes to you one month, you go to him, whatever that looks like. But really making it a priority to set money aside for travel, and then also knowing that you can set money aside for your other things. And the last thing is, you're not on vacation. You're traveling to visit your partner. So take advantage of being in the same place as your partner and really experiencing life together. And that doesn't mean that you're then going to go out to eat all the time or go see all the sites. And I'm sure you probably know this if you're in a similar situation, that traveling for your partner isn't the same as traveling to travel and to experience and to always eat out. So you can figure out ways to make it affordable in that front. Really, the biggest cost is going to be those airline tickets. And if you can't hack it by literally hacking through rewards, you can try to be flexible as much as you can. If you have a job that doesn't allow that, then you just want to make sure that you're budgeting and saving up and buying your flights well in advance using the savings that you set aside specifically for that purpose. Okay. So hopefully that helps. Let me know how it goes. The next thing we're going to get into is questions in regards to work and travel and living abroad and being a digital nomad or whatever it looks like for you. So kind of in that same breath, I had talked about being on a workation. Someone asked, how do you work while traveling? I have zero discipline when I'm away from home. This is definitely a learned art, but I think it also comes from my process of slow traveling and also my mindset and my kind of way of being, which is like, oh, not to worry, I'll be back here someday. So I really try to get away from the FOMO that sometimes you get when traveling. Like if you're traveling and you're like, I have to see everything or I'm going to totally miss out. Like you just have to get away from that if your goal is to work and travel, because you need to be disciplined when you need to be disciplined, and then you need to experience and explore when you can do that. If you're traveling abroad, you can use time zones to your benefit and just set boundaries in terms of the time zone. As an example, if you're in Europe, you have about until 2 p.m. to just do whatever the heck you want, and then you can work for the afternoon until about 8 p.m. And then people are still eating dinner. They're not even eating dinner until after 8 p.m. So you still can go out for a good dinner, enjoy your night, and then wake up the next day and go explore again. My best travel tip is to see all of the sites that you want to see before 10 a.m. because those are the best times to get pictures and to be away from tourists. And you can usually see them much faster and avoid lines and all of that. So if you can change your clock to explore before 10 a.m., get lunch, and then start working around 2, then you're actually going to be pretty good. So that's like one tip in terms of setting some strict boundaries for yourself. I also just think about the fact that I'm not going to miss out if I'm staying in and doing work. And I've also just turned the idea of working and traveling to be something that I've always wanted to experience. And I love personally working from coffee shops or just working from a new place. I'm the type of person that kind of needs a change in scenery every once in a while, and that's how I work more effectively. So that's something that I personally experience is I actually get a lot done and I feel very fulfilled working from new locations. And so that kind of just very easily complements traveling and working and staying disciplined. And then setting boundaries, setting time limits, whatever you have to do there. The other questions. Okay, another one is, what are the best jobs for living digital nomadic life? This is a great question. What I think is really cool is the world is becoming more nomadic in terms of we're going more virtual. We're kind of getting rid of you have to be in the workplace all the time. We're seeing more of those benefits of letting people work from home or work virtually. And the gig economy is just picking up. This, of course, comes with a lot of struggles in terms of being able to manage your personal finances, the fact that you no longer have these business benefits, which is a big reason I'm getting more and more into the space of working with business owners, online coaches on their personal and business finances. So more to come with that in future episodes, just a little heads up. But the blessing is the world is getting more comfortable with working with people virtually. So there's tons of great opportunities and jobs out there. If you can't start your own thing or start your own gig, you can look for virtual opportunities. There's a lot of companies that will offer virtual opportunities. I think jobs, you could be looking at quite literally anything. There's a lot of writing jobs. If you're a copywriter, blog writer, journalist, even someone who is comfortable just creative writing for various industries and you're willing to sell yourself, or you can just get like a content strategy, content marketing, content writing position at all of these jobs that are starting, or businesses that are starting to create more of an online media interface. In addition, social media is always a good one too, because that can be done from practically anywhere. I think the biggest hurdle you'll run into is scheduling and posting at the right time, especially if you have to do like Facebook Lives, or if you have to post on Instagram at the specific time and you don't want to use a scheduler, or you want to be able to interact, or that's part of your job is to engage with the people that are most likely to interact, and maybe they're in a different time zone. That's something that you definitely would have to consider. But there's a lot of others. I think bookkeepers, accountants, if you're into data science, there's a lot more jobs out there that are becoming virtual and can be done virtually and really don't require people to be in the actual office space. The biggest thing that you're going to find is, like, if you are working for a company, also team meetings and making sure that you are awake or available during those team meetings, and you aren't going to be having to like wake up at 3 a.m. every Wednesday for the all hands on deck meetings that you have. That's really important to make sure you cover, but you can actually do job searches for virtual opportunities to see what's out there. There are whole companies like Remote Year and a bunch of other ones that, you know, they'll take you around the world and they just say you just have to find a virtual or a remote position. And then they actually, I think they offer resources on how to find some jobs that do offer virtual or remote working. So that's probably the biggest thing. If you're going to be working for yourself, again, you can go into consulting, you can go into coaching, you can go into whatever your field of expertise and interest is, freelance writing, freelance graphic design, freelancing in any form or shape. It really depends on what you know, what you're good at, what you have proof of being able to create, or if you're willing to grind a little to be able to get that experience. And then you can really start doing your own freelancing or, you know, starting your own business. Of course, you don't want to just like start being a business coach if you've never had business experience, but whatever it is that you do have experience in, that you do have proof of concept in, you can provide value and change people's lives or support people or provide a service or a product in any way, then you can turn that into a money-making opportunity and then take it on the road, just depending on what your timing looks like. You know, for me, one of my biggest challenges is making sure that I can get on the phone with clients without about having to get on the phone in the middle of the night, or them not being able to book with me because I have no openings for them in terms of our time difference and everything else. So that's just something to consider, but I think I'm also living proof that it is possible. I have a fully booked out agenda of clients and we make it work. So that's kind of my 2 cents on that. Okay, the next question is not really a question. This person has a lot of questions. They want to immigrate to New Zealand, but where to begin? It's overwhelming. I have friends that have immigrated to New Zealand. I know that is really hard and it's a huge, long, drawn out process. My best piece of advice for anyone, wherever you want to immigrate to, wherever you want to move to, even if you just want to go for a short period of time, is to look up other people who have done it and either connect with them or binge on all of the content that they've produced around that, and then reach out to people who are experts in that field of like immigration lawyers or tax attorneys, like get all those questions answered, because that's probably what's going to be the biggest thing to hold you back. And the best way that you can overcome those hurdles is to reach out to people who have personally experienced it. Okay, one quick question. Maybe the answer isn't so quick, but it's pretty much relates to anyone, but I think if you are choosing to go nomadic, this is probably a concern for you, is advice for single travelers. So I am a huge proponent of traveling on your own. I would say start somewhere where you can feel comfortable and confident. So if you are a US citizen, then start in the US. Just go somewhere for a weekend and then maybe go somewhere for a week and travel on your own. I think there's nothing that will bring you more confidence than being able to go somewhere by yourself, navigate around on your own. You are totally in charge. You get to pick all the things you want to see. You get to pick everything you want to do. Get comfortable going and having a meal by yourself at a restaurant. Get comfortable making small talk or starting conversation or forming friendships with people that you sit by in the airplane or at the coffee bar, or, signing up for an activity or a random day tour or free tours. There's like free walking tours all over the world. Signing up for those and meeting the people, and then, saying, hey, you want to get drinks later, and meet up again, and getting comfortable being by yourself and knowing that you have the power to go around, meet people, keep yourself safe, make friends, and enjoy yourself when you are by yourself is amazing. There's nothing more confidence infusing than that. I will say there are certain places I would probably avoid going by myself. There's specific countries where you might just not feel so comfortable. And I do think that if you don't feel comfortable, you're not going to be as confident. And it's not necessarily that these places are dangerous or you won't, be safe if you do go there. But I do think that if you lack confidence in being able to navigate or speak up for yourself or just keep your head down and get to where you need to go, it can lead to danger. It can lead to vulnerable situations that I don't want anyone to be in. So there are some places, and you can do your own research on, what is safe or what people would recommend. I would make sure to ask people who have been there before or join some. There's a bunch of like digital nomad girls groups or solo female traveler groups that you can join, and then you can inquire there. You're probably going to get a mixed bag of responses, but also just knowing what to expect. There's lots of countries that just don't have the same social norms as the United States. If you're a single female traveler traveling, you might get some unwanted or undesirable attention that, again, if it makes you feel uncomfortable and that strips away your confidence, that can be, a dangerous situation. It can also just be dangerous, period, whether you're confident or not, and you just need to be aware of your surroundings. Now, I say that in the same breath as traveling by yourself, whether you're female or male or whatever, is still an amazing experience. There's still going to be really wonderful, fulfilling opportunities. There's lots of places in the world that are safe, that you can travel. And my biggest thing is just be smart. Always be aware of your surroundings. Never drink too much. And even if you're traveling by yourself, travel to make friends, travel to meet the people, but don't, go to someone's home without really knowing if it's going to be safe. And I'm basically talking about like, don't meet someone at a bar and then follow them home or something. But there's obviously places and things to do. And like you'll meet people in hostels, you'll make friends, and you will love it. It'll be the best experience of your life. And so don't doubt that the world is just full of danger. There's so many wonderful people and places and things to see. You just got to know what you're getting into. So do your research. Okay, the last question I'm going to conquer is about taxes. I think that's a huge thing that holds people back from moving abroad. Taxes, visas, permits, all that stuff, a lot of the logistics of becoming a digital nomad. And to be honest, I started this podcast episode with a disclaimer. I just have to repeat that I am not a tax expert, and there's not, unfortunately, a cut and dry, super clear answer for this question. But I do think, I can speak to some things that I'm aware of. Again, I would say take it with a grain of salt, only because every single country is going to be different. Every single work opportunity is going to be different. Every single person is going to tell you different things and have different experiences. And at the end of the day, you need to reach out to a professional who can guide you in the right direction, who is an expert and very experienced in U.S. expat tax laws. But let's just dive on in. Let me give you my personal 2 cents and, what I've experienced and what I know so far. So one question is just what are the taxes like as a U.S. citizen abroad? And whether you are owning your own business and taking it abroad, or you get a job with a foreign company and then you move, you are still required as a U.S. citizen to file your taxes. That doesn't mean you have to pay U.S. taxes, but you do have to file them. So that is just something that all U.S. citizens have to do. It's a requirement if you want to maintain citizenship or something. And a lot of people will just get together, fill out their tax forms together, like expats in the same community, and send them in. You can also hire your own tax professional to assist you with this, but that's what you have to do as a U.S. citizen. Now, if you get a job abroad, if you get a job with a foreign company, then obviously you're going to be paying taxes in that country. Every country is different. They all have their different rules and regulations. There's rules around if you can actually even live in the country or stay in the country after a certain number of days. There's rules around if you can work versus if you are there studying versus all the different things. If you're just on a tourist visa, then if you can work there. So it's a lot of really gray area. For me personally, I'm in Italy on a student visa. Over the course of 2018, my main approach was just to pay taxes in the US because my company is run through the US, and I spent a significant amount of time in the US over the course of 2018. Now, if you moved here, you don't own your own business, you were here on a student visa, you can only work up to 20 hours a week because you're required to be in school the other 20 hours. And so that's going to be figured out through whatever work opportunity you're given. You'll be paying taxes probably through that. If you start a company, you might consider registering it in Italy, but there's a lot of other nuances involved in terms of visas because you're here on a student visa, so that gets a little gray. And again, I would just send you to someone who can better speak to that, like a U.S. tax attorney or a U.S. tax expert that knows and is knowledgeable of international taxation or being a U.S. expat. I do know with the the bigger wave of people being digital nomads, of traveling all around, they don't really have one area of residency, then there are some really great benefits here. The first thing is things are still really blurry in terms of how to treat these people. This is such a new thing that there's not really any hard and fast rules technically about it that I'm aware of. I have personally, I paid someone a lot of money for 30 minutes of their time just to get a consultancy around my questions. And again, because I met with them, we decided I would continue to pay U.S. taxes. I spent a significant amount of time in the U.S. for 2018. That was just the best route for me to go. But they also said, there's not a ton of rules and laws around the type of people that are doing this digital nomad stuff. Of course, things can change. Things always change in terms of taxes. But for them, what is really cool is you can run your US-based business. You can live all around the world. And if you're not spending a significant amount of time in claiming residency in one area, which most digital nomads aren't doing, then you're not really required to pay taxes in those areas. Of course, you would want to double check because, again, every country is different. But if you're hopping around, then you're still that US resident who just happens to be living outside of the US. And you might apply for what is called the FEIE, which is a law that allows nomads who make up to $100,000 from providing personal services. So if you're like a coach or you're providing education through programming, then you would be able to essentially waive paying federal income tax. Now, I say that only if you spend less than 30 days in the US or you're able to claim residency elsewhere. So again, if you're traveling a bunch, you're probably not going to claim residency, but you could potentially spend 30 days or less on state soil, on US soil. And if you do that, then you have the potential of not having to pay income tax in terms of federal income tax, which is a huge money saver because our federal taxes are the larger part of our taxation. But that is a huge thing. And I can't speak as an expert to that, but I do want people to know if they are going the digital nomad route. And I'm not sure if this counts for you if you are working for a company, but being a virtual person, traveling around, and or how this would apply to you if you're running your own business. But I do want you to know that FEIE is that law that you should definitely talk to your tax accountant or tax preparer or tax attorney about and see what your options are. Basically, you have to spend 330 days outside of the United States in a 12-month period. And your 12-month period can start on any day. So it doesn't have to be that tax year. It just has to be a 12-month period. So you can set it, and then until you get back to state soil, and you can travel home. You just have to spend less than 30 days in the US. And yes, travel days do count. So keep that in mind. But that can save you a ton of money. Now, in terms of paying taxes, if you are a resident in a different area, like if I become a resident in Italy and then I'm running my business through Italy, I'll likely have to register and pay Italian taxes here. Again, that would then waive me to have to pay US taxes because I'm paying international taxes. That's something that I have to figure out with my tax professionals and see what is realistic for me, because I do run rental property in the US, and then I have my coaching business, and things just get messy. And here's the thing. So many of us choose not to do things, choose not to fulfill our dreams and our destiny and whatever it is we got into this business to do. So if you are, in a position to be able to go nomadic, but you're not, don't let some of these logistical complications hold you back. Because yes, you might pay a little more in taxes, or you might have to pay a professional to prepare your taxes, which honestly, I think most people should do anyway, because you'll probably end up saving money. But it's going to be so worth it to face that hurdle after making the decision than never making the decision because you're afraid of the hurdle. Right? So just don't let that hold you back. People do this all the time. And this is a big thing that held me back from even just making some more permanent decisions in my life as an expat is, the language barrier or finding a new apartment or whatever it is. I let so many things hold me back. And my fiance has to remind me, people immigrate to new countries all the time. You are just making this so much of a bigger deal than it is. You just have to figure it out as you go. And that can feel unsettling, especially for me. I'm such a planner and I'm such a person that takes strategic risk. I never make over risky moves. But from a taxation standpoint, you have to pay taxes. That's the reality. Of course, you can save taxes in some countries over others, but if you let that take away and reduce your ability to experience life to the fullest in ways that you are personally curious about experiencing, then you're not getting what you want out of life anyway, just to save, 35 cents on the dollar on your taxes. So don't let taxations and other logistics keep you from making some of these big life-altering decisions. The last thing is, in terms of visas and work permits and all of that, yes, it can be complicated. And yes, it can keep you from maybe being able to experience life in certain ways. The struggles I've had to go through, and I've talked about this on other podcasts, but for me, I really wanted to move to Italy without having to like rush into a marriage because we didn't know if we even liked living together. And so I had to figure out how to tweak it and make it work. And the way that I did it was looking at, okay, I'm going to become a student and come move here. And if that wasn't going to work for me, and you meet with your tax professional and they're like, you can't be a student and work your job, then you can look into other opportunities. There's always the opportunity to request to be repositioned in your job if your job does allow virtual working, or if they do have locations abroad. That's always something that is open to you. I don't want to say like everyone has that possibility, but if you do have it, leverage that. If you're doing your own thing, then see what you can leverage. If there's opportunities in the country to be able to apply for a self-employment visa, you can go down that rabbit hole. I basically just chose what I could get to work for me the fastest and the quickest, and then kind of figured it out from there. And so far it's worked out. I'm not saying it's the right thing. I'm not saying it's the best decision. I'm not saying that maybe rules will change or maybe I'm doing it all wrong. But again, I didn't want these logistical things to really hold me back from going for it. Of course, there's laws that should not be broken, but as long as you're not breaking the law and you can meet with a professional who can guide you in the right direction, then that can really help you make sure that you're able to do this without totally being a criminal. So I hope that helps. I know that it's kind of vague, and that's because it is. The answers are vague. A lot of people don't know how to treat digital nomads at this point in time. There's no global rule or country-specific rule. Some countries might have certain rules. Some are very undefined. And some countries are more flexible than others. So do your due diligence, reach out to the professionals, get their help, and then go from there. And, make your decisions with the resources you have provided to you and see what you can leverage in that regard and do it. Like, don't let that hold you back from doing it, because in general, it's easier than you think. At the very least, you can travel and you don't have to look for residency in a certain area. At the very most, you could find a job in that country. That's not always the easiest thing to do, but you can see if you can make it work, and then you can go from there. So hope that helps. I'm going to wrap up this episode because we're getting long, but I really was so excited to be talking about my two loves, travel and money. And I want to also be able to empower and inspire you to take those decisions, take those leaps, start fulfilling your dreams of travel, and know that it is totally possible. Just going to leave that out there for you guys, and I wish you all the best on your travels in the future. And if you're looking to go nomadic, reach out with any more specific questions, and yeah, we'll see you then. The last thing I need to mention is if you are an online coach or an online business owner who's trying to get your finances in gear, maybe you feel a little guilty about paying yourself or spending your money because you feel like your business is your baby and it needs to shine and it has to suck up every dollar that you have, that you make, then I totally hear you, and I invite you to join the Guilt-Free Spending System workshop. This is the second time I'm running the workshop, and this time it is totally geared for those who run an online business to help them reframe their mindset in terms of making money and paying themselves around how they feel with their money, how they can build a system that allows them to spend money without having all this guilt tied to it, and how to figure out what they deserve in terms of an income and a business. So if you're interested in that, I invite you to go to wanderwealthy.com/GFSS. The workshop will run the last week of May, and you can get on the wait list now, and then I will reach out to you with more details about signing up for the workshop. So go on over there, and to all y'all, thank you so much for listening. Until next week, I hope you wander wealthy.